Welcome to all of you to the first Open Lunch Talk. The title of the talk is Past, Present and Future of Geotechnical and Structural Monitoring. I know that the title is very ambitious. Of course, the presentation is less ambitious of what you can think. So I will try to make a quite relaxed presentation, but trying to raise some interesting topic of our world, and at the end to give you some news about the international course on geotechnical and structural monitoring and what will be the future considering also this complex time. As I was telling you before, if you have some question, please raise your hands, and at the end of my talk you will have access to your mic and you will have the chance to make questions, comments, or anything else you want. So at present, we are more than 100 people, so I think it's time to start. So the first question, the usual question is, what and when do we monitor? I think the most common reason and the most common cases where we monitor, we perform geotechnical and structural monitoring is during construction works. In any place you are facing with a construction of a tunnel or a bridge or a dam, or you are in a mining site, monitoring is very important. So if you do construction, if you do some geotechnical works or structural works, monitoring is now becoming quite a sort of standard. So that's a good point, because the most common thought is that monitoring is during construction. And I think is where most of the monitoring budget and monitoring projects are running today. But at the same time, another reason for monitoring is not just during construction, but during the life cycle. So the life cycle of infrastructures is, I think, a good reason to monitor. So increasing the life cycle or increasing the span of an infrastructure is a relevant factor. And using monitoring may help from this point of view. So why do we monitor? Of course, we monitor to avoid the risk of failure. In these few pictures, you can see some tragic examples from Europe, North America, South America. Some of them were really tragic events, especially those on the left. I'm pretty sure that most of you know this tragic event in Brazil and in Italy at the same time. But also, this may help to reduce the impact to our daily life. Very often, a small block in a highway or also in a local road or in a railway road may be a severe issue because it creates strong limitation to our daily life. But there is another reason that I think should be probably one of the most brilliant future, and is what is called predictive maintenance. This is one of the reasons is becoming more and more important in the last years, but to be honest, I think that was so much underestimated and underused over the past. Monitoring can be, especially with technologies that are available today, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, it's a great option to increase the lifespan of structures and infrastructures by looking at their age. If you see here, for example, for pavement, when you have this condition is getting over time, this is years, it's getting worse, but if you make some maintenance effort, you can rise the quality and restart with the reduction. You can rise again with maintenance, and so the life cycle and the lifespan of an infrastructure can grow significantly. And at the same time, this is quite evident that in the early life, of course, the maintenance cost can be always the same, but the repairs become higher if you don't make any maintenance actions, and monitoring may allow people to understand where and when it's relevant to make some maintenance actions. And it's quite obvious in any case that the cost of maintenance is several times lower than the cost of repairing a failure. So this is what in the last years I realized is much more clear to also asset managers. And so that's, in my view, something very important that we must stress in the future. If most of us are managers or experts on monitoring, I think we have to work together to increase our capability to do predictive maintenance. This is a great chance to reduce the cost, especially for developed countries where we're starting to have quite old infrastructures, and especially in a crisis, economic crisis time, when we cannot waste money, but we have to use the money available in the right way. Of course, this is the more hard part of my presentation. I decided to give a lot of big thank you. If today we can talk about this topic, it's not my, it's not thanks to me, it's thanks to people that, of course, had in the past the idea of the observational method in geotechnical engineering. And I think that mentioning these two guys, Carter Sagi and Ralph Peck, is a must. The first one, there are two legends. The first one wrote the first paper on the observational method in 1937. Ralph Peck finalized his job in 1969 with a paper published on the prestigious Geotechnique journal titled Advantages and Limitations of the Observational Method in Applied Soil Mechanics. They were quite conscious that geotechnical engineering and geology are plenty of uncertainties. So the uncertainty is something we have to deal with. It's a little bit less true for structural field, but in geotechnique and in geology, the uncertainty is something that we must deal with. And so, starting from this assumption, looking at what is going on during construction, it's a relevant part. And so that's the concept and the reason of the observational method. Ralph Peck had some words of wisdom that I present very often in my presentation. This is one of them. It is we need to carry out a vast amount of observational work, but what we do should be done for the purpose and done well. So there are two key points, three key points. Do a vast amount of observational work. There must be a purpose, and you should be done well. Another words of wisdom is a little bit more hard and relevant, especially today, I think, but also at that time. The observational method, surely one of the most powerful weapons in our arsenal, is becoming discredited by misuse. And this was happening, let's say, at the beginning of the observational world. Unfortunately, today, it's not reduced so much, this problem. So it's very, very important to keep mind on this point. So too often, observational method is invoked by name, but not by deed. And now, another big thank you. This thank you is to this man. I'm pretty sure most of you had the chance to meet him. He's John Dunnicliff. John Dunnicliff is quite famous, especially because he's the author of the 1988 and 1993 book named Geotechnical Instrumentation for Field Monitoring Performance, better known as the Red Book. In 2010, he was awarded as Distinguished Member of the American Society of Civil Engineering with the citation for preeminent leadership in the field of geotechnical instrumentation and monitoring, and for his long and distinguished career as a specialty consultant dedicated to the improvement of geotechnical practice. John Dunnicliff is a legend, and yesterday he decided to make a hard joke. Unfortunately, John Dunnicliff passed away yesterday, just the day before this event, just after that I already prepared my presentation where he was key part on some slides. So I would really appreciate if you can take, let's say, 30 seconds of silence or remind this huge man, this legend in our field. So thank you, John. John, in addition to the Red Book, in the early 80s, started contracted by the Federal Highways Administration to deliver courses, training courses at the different DOTs, so the Department of Transportation across the US. And in the 80s, for the first time, he moved to the University of Missouri to do a repeated course every year or every 18 months. And in the early 90s, he moved to Florida, where he organized his courses up to 2013. This is the last flyer of the course held in 2013 in Cocoa Beach, Florida. Over his time, he took the lead of more than 100 continuing professional education courses on this subject. In 2013, during a dinner in Cocoa Beach with him, if I well remember, Tony Simmons, that should be one of the present, were there as well. We were joking about the next course, the 2014, for John, not in US, too long trip for him. I suggested my hometown, home village, in the countryside of Tuscany. It was something like a sort of joke, but at the end it became something real. And in 2014, we organized the first international course on geotechnical and structural monitoring. And more info will come later. Looking at geotechnical and structural monitoring, a big thank you has to be done also to field measurement in geomechanics. Field measurement in geomechanics was a spontaneous group of people that started to organize one of the most, I think probably the most successful series of events in our field. The first one was in 1983, held in Zurich, Switzerland, then in Japan, Norway, Italy, Singapore, Oslo again, Boston, Berlin, Sydney, and the last one in 2018 was in Rio de Janeiro, where I lost my laptop, but that's another story. Recently, with the effort of some colleagues, I hope some of them are present here, we decided to move this group of passionate people that was not an association or something similar to another level. We started to organize a website, and you really took the lead of this huge effort. And we had also another relevant step when the International Society of Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering decided to organize, taking the legacy of the FMGM, the Technical Committee 220 Field Monitoring. You can find a website here. I really think that most of you already know, but if you don't, please take this link and look at. This is the way this group will continue. And another great news, just in time to let him know, was that recently the TC 220 announced the honor lecture named on John Dunnicliff, exactly on the subject of field monitoring in geomechanics. So since a few months, there was a vote for this. There is a honor lecture named on John Dunnicliff. John Dunnicliff known about this. It was our intention to ask his ideas for potential candidates for topics. He already had a chance to give us some suggestions. He will not have the chance, unfortunately, to see the first one that will be held in London in 2022, but I'm pretty sure he is very happy about this. In 2022, there will be the 11th International Symposium on Field Monitoring Geomechanics that will be held at the Imperial College of London, and that will be organized by Andrew Ridley. Thank you, Andrew, for taking this heft on your shoulders. Okay, but now it's quite clear that there is a story behind the monitoring. There are some people, our association, group of peoples that helped this growth, and some steps are still at the beginning. But don't forget another sentence: an instrument too often overlooked in our technical world is a human eye connected to the brain of an intelligent human being. So that means don't just trust on tools. Tools are tools, but you need a human mind behind. And there is a danger that instrumentation may be discredited because of indiscriminate use. Putting instrument everywhere, independently from the need, is not the right way to do. And the John Dunnicliff song over the last 30 years that I'm happy to remind here is that one: every instrument on a project should be selected and placed to assist with answering a specific geotechnical question. If there is no question, there should be no instrumentation. Instrument may help to understand and answering question. But if you have no question, if everything is clear and you have no doubt, no risk of uncertainty, there is no need. You can save money. So coming to why we monitor, of course, we need to have a question, and the question and the reason for monitoring, from my point of view, is of three main categories. The three main categories that I said in a paper in 2017 that is mentioned before are knowledge monitoring, control monitoring, emergency monitoring. The common applications are on the design phase or standard maintenance and screening for knowledge monitoring, construction phase in medium risk areas, advanced maintenance, verification of high risk areas is control monitoring, and emergency when you need early warning, alerting. So these three main categories that in some cases have not so rigid boundary one with the other may help in understand and raise your questions, and also to make the right design of a monitoring plan. Because the most important point that is rising for what I was mentioning in those sentences from Ralph Peck, John Dunnicliff, is that you need a question. If you have a question, it's not just a matter of putting instruments somewhere. It's to understand your needs, to define what is the right tool to have, the right way to analyze the data. This is what should be named design. So the design of a monitoring plan is what I think today is the most important part that must become relevant during any project, construction, maintenance, or similar. What we monitor? We monitor different parameters from displacement, vibration, acoustic, groundwater pressure, and so on. And we can use contact instrument or especially over the last tens of years or a few years, remote sensing instruments. What we monitor? We can monitor on the surface, on a single point, along lines, on the wall surface, or in a volume. So inside, it's a sketch of a slope. That depends, again, on the need. In some cases, just a tool put on the surface could be enough for a local issue. In other cases, you need to put a lot of instrument to understand the behavior of some geotechnical or structural matter. Of course, to do monitoring, we need equipment. Equipment are fundamental. They are not enough if there is not the right design, right people that understand the data, but they are fundamental, so we cannot do without it, especially in this technological era. I did this diagram recently. I put it on LinkedIn. There was some people that were suggesting that some minor change should be done. I remember there was a nice discussion about the relevance on, let's say, systems for continuous monitoring or wireless or web-based that were probably much more consolidate than in the last 10 years, even if it's when they become quite standard in some project. But this is giving an idea of what was the evolution, what was existing before the 50s, and the amount of technologies that were added in the last 70 years, more or less. There was an explosion of technologies. And today, especially after the 90s, with GPS, wireless systems, laser, radar, satellite, drones, we have today a so wide spectrum of technologies that, again, need some knowledge to make a right design. It's not just a matter we have an instrument, this is the only one you can use. You have plenty of options. You need to know these options. You need to talk with someone that knows this option in order to find the best solution for the specific need, for the specific question. The nice point about this is that some of these technologies are growing very fast. If you think about wireless, if you think about drones, if you think about the web, if you think about satellites, all these powerful technologies, their innovations, has not been developed for geotechnical and structural world. They have been developed for several other reasons, for several markets with a much more budget. And so their growth is so large because of that reason. So the reason is that there are huge markets that are pushing this technology. And so in our small field, and I will present you the numbers of our field in terms of budget and business in the next slide, is we can take advantage of this. We can take so much advantage of technological developments done by others for other fields. So I really think that we have a challenge today, and we have opportunities today that we cannot lose. Just to give you an idea of the market I was mentioning you before, so the size market of geotechnical monitoring, I'm pretty sure that some of you know this number, but probably some others not. In 2020, based on this research that is available online and the link at the end of the page, done by Markets and Markets company, in 2020, the US dollar volume of geotechnical monitoring was about 3 billion. It looks like a huge number, but if you compare this with other technologies and with other markets, it's really, really small. But what is good, that is a consequence of what I was telling you before, is that this market is expected to increase in the next 5 years of a 10%, almost 10% per year, reaching 4.5 billion. And this analysis is accounting for the COVID-19 impact. So this analysis was reshaped after the pandemic event. So that means that this market is growing, notwithstanding the economic crisis that most of us are facing. The market is rising because, as is mentioned here, because the rise of several new products, because there is an increased awareness on these tools and the importance of their use for preventing damages, because there is a lot of infrastructure projects in developed, but especially in developing countries. If you look at the market on structural health monitoring, so the monitoring of structures, I was a bit surprised because at present it looks like this market is smaller, 1.5 billion, US dollar in 2020, but it's expected to double in 5 years, reaching almost $3 billion. So if you combine these two markets, 3 billion plus 4.5, it means that you will have 7.5 billion in 5 years from now, with respect to the 4.5 billion that we have today. So that's a growing market, and we must consider it. That's a good news for us. And what is good, but I think here we need to raise the first pool. Sorry, Alexa, the second pool. I will ask Alexa to launch a pool for you that you can answer just before moving forward. Okay.
Paolo, we have launched the pool. The participants are doing it.
Okay, good. Thank you. I will remove my presentation. You are answering. The question was, you know very well, which percentage of budget is dedicated to geotechnical and structural monitoring in large infrastructure engineering project, which means project up to 100 million in your experience? Some votes are still arriving, but I can tell you that right now, the numbers that we have are quite spread. Unfortunately, few of them is voting more than 3%. And there is the 41% of people is telling between 1% and 2%. About 30% is telling less than 1%. So it means that for 100 million euro project, you have less than 1%, so less than 1 million spent on monitoring, while 20%, 18% of people is telling that it's between 2 and 3%. So it seems that the highest value is anyway ranging between less than 3% with the highest rate between 1 and 2%. So it means that anytime we have a large project, there is 1-2% more or less of budget or something similar spent on this. This is, of course, an average coming from your expertise. I think we can go forward. And yes, this is more or less what I was expecting. If there are some questions, you can raise your hand, What about the monitoring budget? In my experience, it is between 1 and 4 of the infrastructure project. Of course, that's in some very strange case can be lower. In some rare, unfortunately, case can be higher. I will show you an example. But another important point is the monitoring technical value. What I mean with this, what is the technical value of a monitoring project, of a monitoring activities in a monitoring design? I think from my perspective, but I would be happy to have discussions at the end of this topic, that this is proportional on the value, let's say on a tender, on the technical value that is done to this activity, so the geotechnical monitoring. And what I observed in the last years is that this value can range from 0. So in some cases, in some projects, the monitoring is not giving points, technical points for the evaluation of an offer. But in some cases, this value can reach 20%. That's a very huge number. So the fact that in some cases, the value of monitoring, the technical value of monitoring is reaching 20%, even if it's not a common value, it's providing me the feedback that probably in the future, also the value and the value of the budget is going to increase, because the two amounts must be a little bit proportional in some way. And another interesting point is the last one that I was mentioning you before, the design of monitoring plan. I'm observing over the last really few years, and I would like to get some comments at the end of this, that the design of monitoring plans for construction project, but also for maintenance project is starting to rise. And there is a demand for people with a lot of expertise doing design, not just a service, not just providing instrument, not just installing, not just making measurement, just design, telling the owners which kind of instrument must be used, which question must be raised, where the instrument must be put, with which kind of data processing, and so on. In this picture, you see the Colosseum, and one of the design I'm involved right now is exactly the design of a monitoring plan for part of the Colosseum. And in that case, the percentage with respect to the monitoring cost, not just the construction or maintenance, but the monitoring cost of the design activity is about the 15%. So I'm pretty sure that these slides will be one of the most, I don't know, I cannot see the hands rise up, but I'm pretty sure that some will be up right now. An example interesting is the Metro C line in Rome, exactly in the same site I was showing you before. It's one of the most important monitoring project in Italy. In this project, it looks like, this is not my value, it's not verified, but it looks like the monitoring budget was around 70% of the overall budget. Of course, in this case, we are excavating a tunnel and doing the stations close to the Colosseum and in the Fort Imperiale area, I think one of the most famous cultural heritages in the world. So that's probably one of the reasons. And that's the distribution of the budget. There is instrumentation, so the hardware is in some way, and few part for the software is 31%, installation is 14%, and management, so monitoring, data management is more than 50%. Also about this point, it would be nice to have, we have not a pool, but it would be nice at the end to write some discussion if you want, just to give you an idea of how the budget is spent on monitoring. This project is also one of the projects where we arranged field trips. So I'm pretty sure that some of you can recognize himself in these pictures. It was in the last two international courses. We did this field trip, just looking at the instrumentation and the project and so on. And in this occasion, we had the chance to see, I think, any kind of instrument ranging from extensometers, inclinometers, radar, laser, total stations, GPS. Keep one instrument in your mind, and pretty sure you will have it in this project. Trivec is one of the most original and uncommon ones. So considering what I have mentioned before, my feeling is that technical training is a growing need in our field. As soon as the market is growing, as soon as the technical value of monitoring in construction project is growing, as soon as end users are asking more for monitoring and asset manager are asking more for monitoring. As soon as the technologies are growing so fast that it's difficult to keep people updated, training is becoming more and more important. I want to add that it's not important, it's necessary. Because when there is a market that is growing, there is a great chance and opportunity, but there is also a high risk that if you are not well prepared and if you are not providing the right answers to your clients, there is a risk that the use of monitoring is discredited by misuse. You remember this sentence? This is the sentence by Peck. And this is a risk that, from my point of view today, is even more high due to the technologies available, to the market that is growing, and so on. So again, design is very important. And from this perspective, of course, I'm a bit partial from my point of view, I know, but one of the efforts we have done with John in 2014 was the organization of the international course. We had an edition 2014, 15, 16. The first three were in Poppi, inside the Contiguity Castle, in the countryside of Tuscany. Then we moved to Rome, and you see in 17, 18, 19, the pictures taken during this event. And in all these editions, we had more than 100 people attended. Most of these people were coming from all over the world. 90%, 85% were coming from outside Italy. Also affording long travel that unfortunately today you couldn't afford due to the pandemic crisis. A little bit of history of this course for those not attended, or also for those attended just to for their memory. The first one was done in the June 2014 in the Poppi Castle. We also arranged a nice cake, you remember? We had this nice cake during the dinner inside the country, inside the village. That was on the right, the flyers of this event, and that's the schedule. The first schedule that was not so much different to the courses organized by John in Cocoa Beach. So, of course, the legacy was that course. But over the years, we decided to update, taking and trying to follow the growth, the fast growth of this world that I was mentioning you before. We had several partners every year, more than 20 companies that allowed us to make this event possible. that I want to acknowledge. I will acknowledge it again at the end. And in the innovation of the second edition was the first field trip. For those attended, we went in landslides with some instruments installed, and we had some training experience in the field. That's 2017. And the innovation, sorry, 16. And then in 17, we moved to Rome. And moving to Rome, we had some news. The news was mainly the master classes. We started, in addition to the main course and to the field trip, the master classes. Let's hear the first master classes on inclinometers with Mikkelsen, Tola Station, with Martin Bett, extensometers, with George Pezzetti, and so on. And we did also the first field trip in Rome in the Metro C project. That's the fifth edition. We had master classes. You see some examples here again, so it was similar to the fourth. And that's the sixth, again, with a similar format, but opening to new trends and presentations by participants. That was the final schedule that was much complicated in some way. I remember very well that at the end of this course, we are satisfied from the feedback of the people attended, but John said that was a little bit complicated. It was difficult to organize this course. And so that was one of the reasons that let us think what to do next year. Then, of course, next year was 2020. Then, of course, while we are still trying to understand, the pandemic arrived, and we decided, of course, to stop for 1 year. And we were up to 1 month and a half ago discussing with John what to do for the 7th in 2021, because our feeling was that our community needs this event to move forward, also as a reaction of the pandemic. But of course, we were obliged to think a different format. And what was crazy to me was that a person like John, that was always against online things, was so open to embrace this option, realizing that also for him, that could have been an option to be more present with the lower effort. Then, of course, we know that John will be with us, with his legacy, not in person, not online. Over the years, we had so many speakers. You can recognize some very famous names and faces here. Probably some of you recognize himself. Thank you to all of them. And we had so many partners. I think, I almost pretty sure that there is almost no one of the main companies in our field that not attended and supported our course. And I would really appreciate if in the next edition that we'll present you in a while, most of these companies will support again this initiative in 2021. We had 674 participants from 56 countries from 2014 to 2019. That's the distribution, the histogram. And I don't know, Elisa, if you can enter, if you have another pool here.
Yes, we have launched the pool now. So we're waiting for the results.
Thank you. Unfortunately, as soon as people are voting, never is growing with respect to the other ones. The pool is, did you attend the international course on geotechnical and structural monitoring in the past? The answers are 1 time, more than 1 time, never. I consider it in the past, but never attended. We have about 30% of you that never attended. Hopefully next year, when we will have the pool, this percentage will reduce. We have 30% that came one time, about 20% more than one time, thank you to you, and 14% consider to attend it in the past, but at the end, they had not the chance to do it. So I would like that the feeling of participants, of course, I cannot talk about this. I think it's better to show you some of the sentences that some of the participants had in the past. I prefer not to read it, but if you can just look, I will keep this slide for a few seconds. There are some people, including John Barland. He was one of our big legend present at the course. Another one was Michaela Yamalkowski, probably most of you know very well. The last one, I think, is a quite affordable comment because probably Tony Simmons attended, I don't know if all the events, but most of them. These are some other comments. I think also in this case, the last one is a returning part, and it's Fabien Raveis, one of our friends. And we had also people from the Colorado DOT that appreciated this experience. And again, the last one of these sentences is very long. Probably you will not have the time to read it. Is Jacek Stasiewski, I think, is another one of the king of participations. Probably he attended all the 6 editions except for one. He gave us a lot of comments and suggestions. He was a very active and appreciated participants, giving several suggestions on how to improve it, and we hope every year we improve it. So what about 2021? We did a survey just to take decision, because taking decision on how to do it was difficult. And so the first question was, how many days would you like the on-site course, to last? We had a prevalence of 3 days, and so we decided to make 3 days of main course. The second question was, how many hours would you like for the online course? And the answers were ranging between 2 and 4 hours per day. We decided 4 hours. The other one was, which option do we prefer? Access to recorded lectures, so lecturers make record and just share on the web. Access with a limited number of participants, or just a sort of a standard event, but in a virtual room, like we are doing today for this lecture. And that was the global percentage was 58, so very, very high. So that's what we decided to follow. But what is interesting from my perspective is also this one. So most of the people were suggesting 1 day per week for more consecutive weeks, or several full days consecutive, were the 2 preferences. But let me make a comment about the age. What we did was the statistics about the preference of online or on-site course. Then, of course, I think you all agree that arranging an on-site course for the next months is not a good idea. But what is interesting to see here is the impact of the age on the preference for on-site versus online. As soon as the age increases, there is a strong preference from on-site with respect to online. Of course, younger people are more used to online. So for them, below 40, there is not so much change. The others prefer on-site. And so we took account also of these suggestions in defining. But first of all, we defined a new logo. Thank you, Alexandra, for designing it. That's the new logo of the international course on geotechnical and structural monitoring. I really hope you enjoyed. It will be on the website very soon, and you can find more information on the website. That's the new website that was rearranged a few months ago. You can find all the information about the past, and in the next days and weeks, you can find more information about the speakers, the partners that will come. So registration now are open. We arrange a schedule. The schedule is this way. There will be the main course, 3 days in June 2021. It will be the 7th international course. We will have also the field trip, and we will have the master class, 4 hours master class of terrestrial radar interferometry. Then every month up to the end of the year, there will be 2 master classes. So 4 hours of master class on each of these technologies, so that you will have to waste few time, just half a day, 2 times per month if you want to follow all of them, but you can choose to follow a few of them. And if you want to register now, there is the option open for registration, both for participants and partners. Especially for the partners, we really hope that will be their support. They are a key part, and they will have the chance to present their booth, of course, in a virtual booth, not in the real one. We don't know what will be the quality of an online course. I must be honest, I'm pretty sure it will be good, but yeah, we cannot ensure you. What we can ensure is that we will do the best. What I think is that, of course, this pandemic is changing the world, and so the online now is something we must appreciate, we must consider, and we consider it. There will be some limitations. The quality of human interaction we had during the past events, one of the most appreciated things, will be less relevant. But unfortunately, on the other hand, I think that several people that over the last years had not the chance to attend because of the cost of travel, because of engagement in some stuff, difficulties in living, in getting access to come to Italy, now we'll have the chance to access much more easily. So I would like, if you can launch the last pool. Elisa, could you confirm me that the pool is coming?
Yes, I confirm, Paolo.
The question is, did you consider training a key factor of the growth of geotechnical and structural monitoring? And we have, I think, following this presentation, you are obliged to say yes, but as I have at present 100% of people saying yes, I'm pretty sure that it was not just what I tried to convince you, but you are already convinced about this. So I'm very happy of your answer. And let me conclude my presentation with this picture. Thank you, John, for what you have done. This is a very nice time in Poppy. You was an incredibly professional people, but also a nice people, able to enjoy free time. And I'm pretty sure he's happy right now. Thank you again. And thank you to all of you for being here.